Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Ghost and Ghouls. My name is Ft.Fleshwad, and welcome to the spookiest show around, bringing you the creepiest tales to keep you up at night. If you enjoy my show, give the bell a click to be notified when I go on air. Every Sunday we are live. Now, folks, this evening we have a very, very special guest joining us for tonight's show. Without further ado, let's welcome our friend Fleshwad.
Hello, Fetch, and all art friends. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here this evening.
It's an honor having you here, friend. Now, before we get into this show, do tell us about yourself and what you do.
I run the YouTube channel Fleshwad. I draw creepy drawings while reading creepy stories.
That's absolutely wonderful. Now, I wanted to talk to you about Crypto. There's been someone new in town. He's our town's doctor, and he might be around.
Oh? Well, why would he be around?
Well, because my neighbor, Mr. Skinwalker, has been coughing up a storm all night.
I see. Also, what in the world was that sound? It can't be storming. There's not a cloud in the sky.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but... well, I think we both know who's at the door. One moment.
No worries. Take your time.
Good evening, mortal. I'm new in town and reside in room 049. Do you happen to know where room 666 is? I'm looking for a patient by the name of Skinwalker.
Mr. Skinwalker is upstairs at room 402. Lucifer lives in room 666. I think you might have the two mixed up.
I see. How could I be wrong? No matter. I will carry on then. But before I go, does anyone in your homestead require a checkup?
No, thank you.
Well, there you have it. Have a good evening.
Likewise.
Alright, now we can start.
Alright.
Now, folks, it's time to dive into tonight's stories. So with that being said, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's sink into the tales that await you. Take it away, Fleshwad.
The Smiling Man. About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the US. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommates that even the drug dealers in the city were polite, but all of that changed in just a few minutes of one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police-patrolled park quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass by me. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky, and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still, until I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street As I reached the other side, I glanced back and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and the sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved, until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure, due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time, staring at him, and then he started moving toward me again. He took giant, exaggerated tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say at this point I ran away, or pulled out my pepper spray or my cell phone or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling his smile, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper. What? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling, and then, after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance-walking away, just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go, until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight, and then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off of the side road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see a stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night. I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see.
Well, that wraps up today's interesting show. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Also, special thanks to Fleshwad for joining me this evening. If you guys want to give her channel a visit, I highly suggest you do. She has a variety of content with artwork that will captivate you at first sight. I'll link her info in the description below. But that's all for now. Thank you for tuning in and tune back in next Sunday. My name is Ft.Fleshwad.
My name is Fleshwad.
Signing off.